Chapter 110, The Truth Gate, Part 2-2. Translator, Strivon. Zheng Xiao was speechless for a time. He came back to reality when An Weng got into position, and the spell formations atop the three buildings began to calibrate and operate. An Weng, are you amused, sir? If this was true, news of the imminent opening of the Gate of Truth would soon begin circulating within the Order of Justice. It was said that through this mystical gate, one could see this order's holy entity, the true body of the scales of truth. The gate opens the way to the paramount authority, allowing supreme knowledge to be obtained. Zheng Xiao was the first oblatum in charge of missionary matters in the region. This concept was the product of brainwashing spread by the preaching of their priests. They used the recent earthquake in Xia City and borrowed a few words from the Order's doctrine to create these rumors. They claimed that the Gate of Truth was located near Xia City. The days of several earthquakes that had happened one after another was an interacting reaction. The holy entity was coming unceasingly closer to the material world. Priests of the Order of Justice's secular side had to spread similar talk every year. They had to recruit believers and expand the influence of their order. Strange sights were not surprising for Zheng Xiao. Their order just so happened to seize new ground in analyzing and exploiting the human-faced arachnid. Their research was making great progress. Soon, they would push out new faith products. Zheng Xiao wanted to ride this momentum, so he did not set many restrictions on the rumors spread by their priests. These rumors were such nonsense. An Weng was chasing the wind and clutching at shadows. He could not really believe these rumors, right? They could not possibly bind down Fairchild's hands and legs with this. The old man is out of his mind. The other first oblatum, and Chengli messaged Zheng Xiao through a private channel. Zheng Xiao did not go along with him, and Chengli's words may not have been polite, but this was just how An Weng's grandnephew was. Normally, An Chengli put on a bright face and relied on his family elders to forge alliances with others. Who knows what sort of context was going on in the background? Moreover, Zheng Xiao did not believe that there was a problem with An Weng's mind. An Weng may be a secret-bound first oblatum, but his seniority exceeded that of 90% of Mindseer first oblatums. He could have been more, but he was already at an old age when he had received the revelations from the holy entity. His fleshly body could not bear it and limited his success. Even though things were this way, every priest and cardinal in the order had to greet An Weng when they saw him, and this included even the great archoblatum. With the passage of time, An Weng's original name had long since been forgotten. An Weng had never disgraced the honorific Weng, which meant an elderly wise man. An Weng may be a centenarian old man with an utterly decrepit body, but his understanding of the current state of affairs was clear and deep. His understanding exceeded that of these clear-sworn first oblatums. At the very least, Zheng Xiao felt inferior to this old man. He was forced to think a layer deeper. Were there deeper meanings within An Weng's words? Zheng Xiao recalled some pertinent records in his memories. According to the Order's holy scriptures, the opening of the Gate of Truth marked the start of the transformation of the world. Last time it happened, mutants engulfed the globe. The Earth's ecology was completely altered, and the shackles that locked the hidden potential of humanity were destroyed. The Earth had received a revelation. He had no doubts that the next time the Gate of Truth opened, humanity and the world would be transformed once again. As for whether prosperity or destruction laid in the future, None of that was stated explicitly within the Holy Scriptures. No matter what direction the transformation, this was a matter that shook the world. If this information turned out to be true, the upper levels of their order would have exploded with commotion. The order's holy cardinals, Mindsia First Oblatums, Great First Oblatums, and even the elusive and mystical Archoblatum would get involved. They would clear their calendars and gather at Xia City. Xia City was now a turbulent place, of rising winds and scudding clouds. But the current situation was not that crazy. It was not possible for this to be true, right? Oh, hold on. If it's the gate of truth, if Xia City was really going through turbulent developments, what sort of benefits could the order of justice obtain? If things really did turn big like the so-called butterfly effect, the government, the army, the ability user society, and the major financial powers may get involved. The order of justice was not going to wait and split the gains with all these powers, right? Zheng Xiao suddenly shivered when his thoughts reached this point. His entire body was trembling unconsciously, even though he was wearing thick black robes. This was not a symptom of fear. It was brought on by sudden feelings of excitement and stress. An Weng, sir, are you saying that the gate of truth is actually real? Is it real? Is it fake? And Chengli was curious about what Zheng Xiao was talking about. He could not help but interject. Why hasn't there been any news about this from up top? Even if there was news, it would not be given down to members on their level. Zheng Xiao had always harbored some suspicions. He believed that An Weng had called him here for a reason. Was it because An Weng knew that his greatest strength was his self-awareness? Did An Weng call him here to form a team with An Chengli, a young first oblatum whose ambitions exceeded his abilities? Although An Chengli had many faults, he was not stupid. He asked with a rapid fire of words, An Weng, does the great Archoblatum have a holy command? If the gate of truth is really going to open soon, do we have the time and place yet? Is today's matter just a pretext? That is true. Could it all be just a pretext? Zheng Xiao was unable to make a definite sense of things for a time. It seemed that they really were using the conflict with Fairchild and the internal strife of their order as a facade to cover up their true intentions. This way, the powerful members of the secular side and the truth side of the order of justice could amass in Xia City without suspicion. They could form an absolute advantage over the other powers. Then what was today's deployment all about? Once in a while, An Chengli made an excellent partner, especially when his brain was in high gear. He scrambled to speak out Zheng Xiao's suspicions. If things are really this way, then we are to be stagehands for this play. Fairchild is quite the fitting character. How credible do you think this pretext is? And Weng had answered only one question, yet it spelled out many matters quite clearly. Zheng Xiao and An Chengli were both silent. They needed more time to digest all of this. The rain fell harder and harder into the night. Though the drizzle was blocked off by the top of the rooftops, they could still hear the low splattering sound of falling raindrops. And Weng did not give these too much time to think. Soon their mental domains trembled as black light and white lines interweaved to form the classical structure of a balanced scale. It manifested in the deep void that ordinary people would find hard to see, and it declared its existence towards these two people. The black and white plates on each side were each connected by 3 chains of their respective colors. The frame in the center allowed the 2 sides to serve as foils for one another. The base below was thick and heavy. There was nothing else to the structure besides the aforementioned parts. It was concise and simple. This was none other than the projection of the scales of truth. It acted as the paramount holy entity of their order. No matter the place, the time, or the circumstances, all must be respectful towards it. The two first oblatums bowed and recited scriptures in silence, thus temporarily clearing the distracting thoughts from their minds. Right now, the scales of truth were not in a balanced state. It was as if there was something heavy on the white plate, which caused it to sink all the way to the bottom. The black plate on the other side was raised high up. It gave off the sense that it could topple over at any moment. This unbalanced state was the original indicator of their order's powerful mantra. Everything they were doing was for the sake of bringing this unbalanced state back to a balanced state. This process would bring them mystical powers that were unimaginable. However, this time, there were some oddities with the state of the scales of truth. The white plate, which was pressed far down, appeared to be completely empty. At the very least, not a single object could be seen on it. On the other side, there was a tiny snake atop the raised black plate. It was as thin as a chopstick, and its body was coiled up in a circle. Its mouth bitted its tail, and murky clouds churned around it. This tiny Ouroboros snake was the manifestation of the words of Christ. It symbolized the negative force of suffering they presently controlled within Frost River reality. It was something they needed to endlessly adjust to achieve balance with the scales. It was the only weight they could manipulate. However, if they looked at the state of imbalance, it seemed that this weight was not enough. It appears that the words of Christ's operation is not running smoothly. Actually, Zheng wanted to ask what sort of offering was placed on the white scales for the truth side. And Chengli asked, the Christ's absorption is being interfered with. Are the ability users inside Frost River reality up to some mischief? An Weng did not express an opinion. Let us take a look then. Chapter 111, Inquisitor, Part 1-2. Translator, Strivon. When An Weng gave this command, it did not matter whether it was in Chengli or Zheng. They both drew their minds back and returned to their respective positions. Installation of the equipment atop the three buildings had been completed at this time. They began to start up simultaneously. A special three-dimensional projector held the necessary core functions. A rainbow-colored light was instantly cast, and it interweaved to form a structure of countless changing layers. Such a complicated spell formation would normally require a couple hours to be deployed, but it was able to appear instantly through projection. The scattered rays all went through a special process to carry a fixed amount of energy. If an ordinary person were to be irradiated by the light, they would probably be burned on the spot. However, with the control of the three first oblatums, not a single bit of these rays' energy was wasted. They all converged into every foundational structure of the spell formation and fused all sorts of flavors of light together. It was as if each of these first oblatums was wrapped in a cocoon of light. Fundamental magic runes were arranged in order in the inner layer of the light cocoon. They formed a single chain-like structure that revolved and spiraled. This was the foundation for the inner ring. Atop this foundation, countless arcs radiated out to intertwine with multi-pointed stars on the outer layer. They linked together marvelously to form dozens of independent gear-like structures of various sizes. The teeth of these gears bit together one by one. It was like an enormous machine. It rumbled as it started up and buzzed as it operated. The surface of the sphere surrounding it All was composed of dozens of hundreds of spell circles. A darkish gray light circulated like rapidly flowing turbid waters. It flowed like a gurgling river, and it seemed that the river could overflow at any time. Though there was this danger, powerful tension could be obtained from this. Practically, the exact same spell formation was formed atop the three buildings. They formed the edges of an invisible equilateral triangular structure. This structure's name was Evolution Field. It was erected by the three first oblatums working together, so they all got to share in its marvels. Of course, An Weng, as the secret-bound first oblatum, possessed the highest privileges. He held the lead position. Additionally, right in the middle of the evolution field was the projection of the scales of truth that was in an unbalanced state. Though the scales of truth had yet to enter the material plane, all the surrounding believers within the material plane knelt down on their knees. These priests and knights paid their respects according to their order's etiquette. Their devotion and reverence converged into the spell formation and transformed into a confluence of special energy and information, increasing the activity of the formation. The magical spell formation was now in operation. The surrounding area gradually came under its control. The most explicit change was the effect upon their range of senses. None of the three first oblatums were great at mental sensing. They needed to use the words of Crite to make a snake hive in order to understand the detailed situation within Frost River reality. It only had a range of 1 kilometer in a straight line after all. Alternatively, they could use a human weapon such as bays as a fulcrum. These were the only two methods they could use. However, the information from Frost River reality was being collected through the evolution field shared by the three right now. It did not matter how numerous or complicated the information was. The plethora of chaos was being filtered and gathered within the triangular structure. In the end, the information was formed and cast to the souls of the three first oblatums. The image went from blurry to clear, and it covered a range of over 100 square meters. Every living being appeared within this image. Additionally, under the effects of some special mechanism, the image automatically focused, centered on the most important characters, and marked them out. There was not much to say about the target's status. It was a half-grown kid who looked to be around 15 years old. He was dressed casually, and he looked like a student who had come to Frost River reality for some weekend fun. Anyone picked out from the people in his vicinity would yield a member of society quite a few years older. Yet this group of cautious people encircled this young man so that he was in the center. Some did this unconsciously. Some did this consciously. Most notably, there were the 8 tall and brawny special police officers equipped with exoskeleton armor. They held their guns and shields, and they naturally formed a defensive formation. Their appearance was like they were escorting a high-level official. So is he the one. Zheng and Chengli were a bit surprised. An Weng maintained his silence. This was not the limit of the information gathering and analysis of their evolution field. Special symbols internal to the order were scattered down to the image. Every target in the room who the first oblatums needed to be concerned with were marked as clear as day in an eye-striking fashion. The three first oblatums saw something astonishing upon each of these people, and it was no different from one person to another. The same form existed upon each of their chests, the same combinational structure. A tetrahedron with an inner-scribed sphere and an outer-scribed sphere. This is the archetype format. And Chengli was a clear-sworn first oblatum after all. He was familiar with the extraordinary theories of each major power. He obviously would not forget the archetype formatting theory that was currently scorching the world. Zheng Xiao hesitated for a moment, but he still made a correction. The archetype format is a standard way of enhancing the fleshly body. However, the current situation seems to be the product of interfering with the material plane from the mental plane. And Chengli gasped and wanted to speak, but An Weng's thoughts were transmitted clearly before he could speak. The operation of the words of Crite is congested, and the reason is this young man. He is the most direct cause. He doesn't have many years on him, yet he already possesses considerable soul strength. And the operation of his powers is meticulous. He naturally belongs to the side of order, not chaos. Plus, he received Fairchild's Shield of Truth, blessing not too long ago. Fairchild, the Shield of Truth. Zheng Xiao and An Chengli both ate a sudden shock. What's his relationship with Fairchild? Who cares about their relationship? And Weng continued to have thoughts of indifference. The only thing we need to know is just how much more powerful is this young man's blessing, and the tetrahedron structure are after receiving the blessing from Fairchild. No matter where he goes, the powers of chaos and order will have their limits. Do we have information about this young man? Naturally, the Order of Justice had spies in the Ability User Society. Though they might not have access to top-secret information, they could access basic resources. It was inevitable for them to find information on this young man. It did not take long for the three first oblatums to get to know this young man. And Weng did not hide his special attitude towards this young man. Luo Nan, a new member of the society, a young man with boundless prospects, a young man with little background. His powers come from talent. If we had encountered him earlier on, drew him into the order, and given him careful training, perhaps he might have been a contestant for Saint. Zheng Xiao's heart shuddered, and Chengli had strived for the title Saint back in the day. He was not successful, so he returned to Xia City in silence. He became a clear-sworn first oblatum, but he was always brooding over his failure. Why did An Weng mention such things? Separated by 100 meters of the night sky, he was unable to see in Chengli's expression. Next, An Weng gave an order. A Chengli. An Weng. The secular side is not the secular world. What we do is formulate rules for the secular world. So when we engage, we need to find reasons to. We also need to make our stance clear. An Weng, Zheng Xiao could hear something ominous from those words. He could not refrain from speaking. However, An Chengli was already struck to the core by his grandfather An Weng's words. The stage had been set. He responded practically instantly, "An Weng, command me, sir. We need to make it clear to people of the world that the order of justice is different from the scattered ability user society, that we are different to those politicians that believe in trickery. We have our doctrine, and we absolutely will not compromise. They will need to pay the price for their reckless meddling with the internal affairs of our order. Right now, you are the Inquisitor. Make the verdict then." Chapter 111, Inquisitor, Part 2-2. Translator, Strivon. Luo Nan had a bad feeling ever since they left the room. They had embarked after they rendezvoused with Bai Xinyan. Their route was none other than the area swept by the sniper bullet trajectories not so long ago. The amusement center was completely empty, and all they saw was a complete mess. The helmets and equipment were on the ground everywhere, tossed by customers who lost their minds in fear. Occasionally, they would happen upon human corpses blasted by the high-energy rounds. The automatic sprinkles had activated above. It now rained both inside and outside the amusement center. The water mixed with the flesh and the blood to form a paste-like substance, and the faint red bloody water flowed beneath their feet. Their group, who had been stuck in the room for quite a while, found the current situation hard to imagine. At the very least, Luo Nan never expected this. He never expected to see this scene in Frost River reality. At this time, he had to repeat meaningless words endlessly. Yes, don't worry, I'm fine, I'm really fine. I'm with the special forces. It is very safe here, don't worry. He was talking to Mo Qiu, his older cousin whose legs had turned to jello from the shock and was waiting outside. Mo Qiu did not stop Luo Nan from leading Officer Zhu into Frost River reality. He had thought that Luo Nan was trying to get on this police officer's good side, to make it easier to plead for leniency for Mo Peng and the others' sake. After all, they had been taken into custody for being involved in a brawl. But how was he to know that a terrorist attack would happen in the amusement center just a dozen minutes later? There was news that the special forces were knocked out. Then came the explosive sounds of gunshots. Frost River reality had exploded with chaos. Mo Qiu and the others had been brought outside by the chaotic tide of people. He wanted to contact Luo Nan, but his call went to voicemail. Mo Qiu was scared out of his mind for Luo Nan. He thought about calling again, but in these special circumstances, repeated calls would bring Luo Nan troubles. It was an impossible situation, and it tormented him until he practically went mad. In the end, Luo Nan noticed the missed call on his wristband while he evacuated from the room. He called back and let Mo Qiu's stomach, filled with fires of torment, settle down. The relieving of stress would inevitably make one be a bit chatty. Luo Nan used a patient tone to lessen Mo Qiu's worries. From their conversation, he was able to partially grasp the situation outside. After the so-called terrorist attack hit, the police set up a blockade line surrounding Frost River reality, and they evacuated the civilians nearby. Everyone believed that the police would rush in at Godspeed and control the situation within Frost River reality. But no one ever expected the police to hesitate outside, even after amassing several hundred personnel. They just dispatched a few combat robots and other unmanned machinery inside. These robots would rescue a few civilians from time to time or retrieve a few corpses. Aside from this, they really did not do anything besides draw resentment from the civilians. Luo Nan heard how the police was handling things. He nodded. Well, this is the way they should do things. Currently, Frost River reality was enveloped by the Order of Justice's words of Crite power. All living beings within its range would likely be reduced to snake hives. They would help the enemy. The police methods were clearly directed. Mo Qiu did not understand. Nanster. Luo Nan was unable to explain such things to Mo Qiu. He could only say, Mo Peng and the others have already been brought to the station, right? It's safe there. Third brother, Yu, senior sister Xiaolin, and senior sister Tian should leave quickly. You guys should go far, far away. I heard some internal information. These terrorists probably have weapons of great destruction. What? Don't talk nonsense. Zhu Weilan heard Luo Nan speak without thinking and put a stop to it at once. Luo Nan waved a hand towards him in apology. He then continued talking with Mo Qiu. I'm with the special forces. I'll probably evacuate from a different direction. Don't be concerned about me. Just be concerned about getting far away from here. Also, don't talk about this matter with our family for now. You think you can hide it from them? Mo Qiu laughed bitterly. The media of the entire world have their cameras focused on you guys. Luo Nan ended the call with Mo Qiu. His brain could not help but imagine what Mo Qiu said about the rescue and corpse retrieval situation with the police. The indescribably bad feeling invaded his mind once more and forced him to sigh with worry. Zhu Weilan saw that Luo Nan had ended his call. He walked up to him and gave him a few reminders. Luo Nan, you may be an expert, but your family members are not. They may not be able to handle things. You can't guarantee that he won't spread information outside and be manipulated by others. Luo Nan just wanted to emphasize to Mo Qiu the importance of getting far away ASAP. He was referring to the words of Crite when he talked about weapons of great destruction. It was not too far from the truth. However, Zhu Weilan was an elder. Having heard these words from Zhu Weilan, Luo Nan went along obediently. Zhu Weilan only said such things because of his professional habits. He saw how Luo Nan had manifested the tetrahedron figures to protect their bodies. He saw Luo Nan's mystical power. He automatically associated the identity of this young man with that of an expert. He naturally had worries of his own. Now he saw that Luo Nan was able to maintain a respectful attitude towards his elders. Luo Nan possessed impressive discipline. His original solid impression of Luo Nan being a drug abuser was diluted by quite a bit. At the same time, he now had somewhat of a good impression of Luo Nan. Zhu Weilan also did not want to label his son's friend with any stereotypes. The suspicions he had once harbored were resolved all at once. He reached out with his hand to swipe twice at the ghostly tetrahedron figure on his chest. The air rippled with subtle waves visible to the naked eye. The figure warped and morphed a bit, but was soon restored to its original state. This figure, it can guard against those mental attacks, right? How long can it be maintained for? What is its name? Format pyramid, so my grandfather calls it. Luo Nan laughed. It's a bit of an exaggeration to say that it can guard against mental attacks. It can only prevent disturbances on the mental plane. For a direct attack, it can only act as a cushion to give one time to react. As he spoke, he looked at the tetrahedron figures on the chest of the surrounding group of people. Each one of them was protected by the format pyramid buff, and this made Luo Nan quite happy. His voice was bright and clear. As for how long it lasts, things will be fine as long as I'm standing here. Student Luo Nan, are you sure that you are fine? Before Luo Nan could finish speaking, someone else besides him spoke. She spoke with an emphasis on the second "you." There were some implications in her words. The speaker was none other than Bai Xinyan. As their party made their way according to the evacuation route, this doctor of medicine had her head down and was looking at her wristband the entire time. It seemed that she was looking at some data. Her concentration made it so that she was practically blind to her surroundings. She had barely spoken at all today, and it seemed that the words she did speak were quite undermining. Dr. Bai, Luo Nan could only squeeze out these words before suddenly going speechless. Bai Xinyan had gotten close to him, reached out with her arm, and seized him by the shoulders in a half-pressing, half-hugging sort of way. She just walked forward with Luo Nan in this dubious position, attracting sidelong glances from the people nearby. Luo Nan understood clearly that Bai Xinyan did not have those intentions, but her arm held him tight, and her body pressed tightly against his. He felt an indescribable softness against his back, and his body subconsciously stiffened up. Light tactile sense, normal. After that, not only did Bai Xinyan have his shoulders in her embrace, she used her other hand to lightly turn his neck and examine his carotid artery. The warmth of her fingers invaded Luo Nan's skin as his veins and nerves pulsed. This information was fed to Bai Xinyan through her finger. Chapter 112, A New Direction, Part 1-2. Translator, Strivon. Hello, are you going to take a bite out of him next? Zhang Yingying could not refrain from shouting. Cat Eyes was sharing her perspective, after all. Bai Xinyan and Luo Nan could not hide any shady business. The members of the society within the encrypted channel could see it all as clear as day. Ultimately, Luo Nan was a thin-skinned individual. He heard what was said and wanted to struggle free. But then Bai Xinyan's finger did something interesting as it pressed lightly against his neck. It changed instantly back and forth from being hot to being cold. The rate of change was quite fast. Luo Nan had tempered himself in the Frost River waterway not too long ago. The warm and cold sensory receptors of his skin were extremely sensitive, so sensitive that he might not be able to distinguish between the receptors. The stimulation came clearly in this sharp contrasting manner, which caused him to be unable to hold back from trembling. At this moment, Bai Xinyan's other hand that rested on his shoulder began to exert force. It was fine in the beginning, being just pure pressure, but it changed later. Though Luo Nan had the shield of truth buff, he could feel his muscles, bones, and skin undulate beneath Bai Xinyan's fingers. The sensation of pain assaulted him, causing him to crease his brows. Dr. Bai, hey! Luo Nan's entire body almost jumped. This was because Bai Xinyan's fingers, which used to lay on his neck, had suddenly slid down his collar to touch his chest. Wow! Cries of shock and astonishment rang throughout the encrypted channel. Normally, special police forces would advance with vigilance and attentiveness, but even they could not help but look in distraction. Bai Xinyan was a beautiful woman who could make anyone's heart rate increase, but Luo Nan was unable to bear this sequence of events. His right shoulder was pressed down, and he had no strength in his arm. He could only raise his left hand to push through his clothes against Bai Xinyan's slender hand, which had already slid down to his chest. However, when his arm curved up, his elbow hit Bai Xinyan's body behind him. It seemed that he had hit someplace inappropriate. Luo Nan's body froze up, but at the same time, Bai Xinyan's melodious laugh rang by his ears. No issues with pressure sense, pain sense, and temperature sense. No anomalies can be seen with the biological senses. Reflexive movement, motion, and sense of balance are quite accurate. Pretty good, tilde. Bai Xinyan nonchalantly pulled a distance away from Luo Nan as she spoke. She acted as if nothing had happened. Luo Nan realized that Bai Xinyan had done some functional tests on him. However, she did this out of the blue. What was the meaning of this? I was looking at some data, and I found out a few things. Those who receive the Shield of Truth's blessing will have a substantial increase in their defensive ability. But if they're buffed for a long time, dislocation to bones, damage to nerves, and other symptoms may appear. Researchers believe that this is due to the power of the Shield of Truth. As it reinforces the structure of the human body, it also causes distortion or the feeling of numbness in the target, making it impossible to accurately grasp the limits of the body. But looking at student Luo Nan now, it looks like you haven't had any of these symptoms appear. Was Fairchild's iron fist of love more refined than normal? Voices went, "Oh," in the encrypted channel as they realized what was going on. However, just how many of them could really understand this explanation? Luo Nan recovered from his embarrassment and was forced to admire Bai Xinyan's judgment. It seemed to match up completely with his current circumstances. She just overlooked one thing: the impact the blessing had on Luo Nan himself. When Fairchild had landed his fist on Luo Nan, the power of the mutual interference between the mental and the material was injected into Luo Nan. It covered his entire body. The blessing was inconceivably exquisite. It seemed to permeate every cell of Luo Nan's body. When this thick power permeated within, the millions of basic building blocks of Luo Nan's body began to strengthen layer upon layer. They also subtly warped and dislocated. It was the same as casting certain powerful basic structures of the Shield of Truth into Luo Nan's body. His body now had a dramatic increase in how much it could bear. Bai Xinyan's judgment was correct up until this point, but those who received this blessing normally would not receive it down to the cellular level. Fairchild had given him preferential treatment. However, there was a reason why Fairchild had acted so exquisitely. He just strengthened Luo Nan on a basic level, giving Luo Nan room to regulate and control this power. Any other person would freeze for some time when facing the exquisite structure of the Shield of Truth, so it would be quite decent for them to be able to follow established instructions. In Luo Nan's case, he had only received Fairchild's demonstration recently. He was not clear on the subtle details. However, he could not be clearer on the basic concepts. Therefore, things came to him quite naturally when he unleashed his soul's strength. With his soul configuration as a reference, he boldly utilized these basic structures to combine them with his "My Heart's a Prison" format, which was the materialization of his visualization and 5 years of psychotropics. His format had undergone a second degree of change, erecting an outline of a configuration which was better suited for him. Luo Nan continued to tweak the outline of his soul configuration even now to make it more harmonious and coherent. Naturally, such refined work would not appear in Bai Xinyan's data. Unfortunately, such a calibration was only temporary. The blessing of the Shield of Truth only lasted for a short time. Once its effects were gone, Luo Nan's body would return to its original state. This was more or less what Bai Xinyan had said. He now understood Bai Xinyan's previous intentions, but the way she did things left Luo Nan brooding. The warmth on his face had yet to dissipate. To hide it, he spoke a bit louder. "I already said that I'm fine. It was me. I requested White Salt to examine you. Don't blame her, Mr. Luo." He Yueyin was the one to answer him, and she did not do so in the encrypted channel. Her words came directly in the form of sound waves. Luo Nan was a bit startled. He lifted his head and looked forward to see He Yueyin. She was still dressed in her professional attire. She stood in the hazy mist that was sprayed from sprinklers on the ceiling and gave a slight bow in their direction. Though she was covered by the mist, her body remained completely dry. It was as if there was an incorporeal force that surrounded her body, isolating her from being contaminated by external matter. Her gaze pierced through the mist and reached over. It was then that Luo Nan could clearly sense a layer of thin haze masking what had been her clear, bright eyes. This female secretary constantly gave him help altruistically. It was hard for Luo Nan to be angry at her. He shook his head, but He Yueyin spoke before he could speak. "The next mission will be more troublesome. However, if Luo Nan's endurance is temporarily stronger after receiving the Shield of Truth's blessing, and he can bring out his complete ability, then it will make the operation much easier. Luo Nan's eyes lit up, but before he could inquire in greater detail, Zhang Yingying displayed even more excitement in the encrypted channel. Ho, is it time for him to draw some scribbles? Wait for me, I'll be there soon. Hey, it looks like you didn't bring your black notebook. Do you need me to find you pen, paper, a flexible screen, or something and bring it over for you? I'm right next to a department store, you know. Lista, go. Take 2 of any high-end brands you find. Lista, who was with her, was obviously embarrassed. It took a while for him to respond faintly with a mere sentence. Am I really doing this? Luo Nan was baffled as well. It seemed that Zhang Yingying was even more excited than him. What the heck was this? However, He Yueyin denied Zhang Yingying's conjecture. No, what I need now is Mr. Luo's ability to make long-range attacks and his all-encompassing perception. Chapter 112, A New Direction, Part 2-2. Translator, Strivon. All-encompassing perception. Kitty, a certain someone's going to replace you. Zhang Yingying buzzed and made a racket quite delightedly. Luo Nan's identity as scout and his participation in the society's operations were kept secret. There were no direct leaks. However, within the society, it was impossible to block rain and wind completely. At the very least, it was impossible to hide it from people as persistent as Zhang Yingying. She was not surprised that Luo Nan possessed this kind of ability. His identity as scout was all but directly laid bare. Though He Yueyin vigorously advocated for applying classification levels, it seemed that she had taken the initiative to blur the boundary between Luo Nan and scout. It was unusual, to say the least. Zhang Yingying absolutely would not let this chance escape her grasp. She immediately gave He Yueyin a private message. Hello, you're knowingly breaking the rules. This time, He Yueyin had no response whatsoever. Luo Nan was a bit surprised, but he was more concerned about the request that He Yueyin had raised. In fact, this secretary just explicitly assigned him a priority mission, not one that was protective and limited. This was the first time she had done such a thing. Luo Nan was eager to give it a shot. He Yueyin spoke neutrally. Bamboo pole. Report Frost River Reality's current situation. All right, Bamboo pole responded in a lazy voice. In accordance with the secretary's request, I will distribute an image to everyone then. As he spoke, a complete real-time dynamic map was released in the encrypted channel. It was altered from Frost River Reality's elevation structural drawing. The result was semi-translucent. It was very clear and intuitive to look at. Over here in Frost River Reality, Secretary Yingying and student Zhu Lei have already cleared out the area. Both the military and the police's combat robots have also entered the site. Most of the space has already been swept clean. However, there are some areas where they found it impossible to take under their control. By searching the monitoring system, I've found that the Order of Justice still has 5 to 7 gunners. They are mostly concentrated around the border between Area A and Area B, and they control the external passageways. Also, bays and the other human weapons are protecting them. He's the red dot on the dynamic map. Luo Nan looked at the map with rapt attention. He took the initiative to ask, how many are there like bays? Cough, Boss Nan, there is only 1 human weapon like bays. If there were 2, then you guys wouldn't have left that room alive. Bamboo pole had to correct Luo Nan's mistaken thought. However, there are slightly shoddier human weapons. They are none other than the Oblatum Knights of the Knights of Equity. There's only a small squad of them in Xia City. There are 9 in total, including Bai's. Since their goal is to get rid of Fairchild, either all of them or at least more than half of them have been dispatched. They are waiting on the fringe of the battle area between Fairchild and Bai's. Despite this, there is a problem. Even though these Oblatum Knights haven't fused their power with that of a first Oblatum, intrinsically they're equal to a C+ rank or higher ability user. It will be very difficult for us to discover their existence just using the monitoring system. In other words, I am to find out where all these people are, right? Luo Nan did not really feel that this task was that difficult. However, there was one thing he did not understand: just how amazing are C+ rank ability users. Bamboo Pole gave him a point of reference. The secretary was evaluated at C+ when she entered the society. It's probably the peak level of the awakened stage. Luo Nan swallowed a mouthful of shock. He had seen He Yueyin in action several times. Her callous and swift tempo made one feel like they were facing a thick steel wall. She was someone who could kill with a single blow. Now, all of a sudden, there were 8 or 9 characters with as much strength as He Yueyin. Of course, the highest score possible in the society's entrance evaluation is a rank of C+. I myself believe that the secretary should be able to reach B with her strength. I've heard that Boss Nan got an entrance evaluation of E+. You were also seriously underrated. Thank you. Luo Nan gave a word of thanks to Bamboo Pole. However, he was still unclear just how a C+ rank was measured in the end. The only ones who were more clueless were dreadfully only Zhu Weilun and the surrounding special police officers. Bamboo Pole directly switched to a different material of reference. Take Yingying for example then. Her strength was only ranked at C, yet her white rainbow can reach a rank of C+ in offensive power. An image of Zhang Yingying flashed in Luo Nan's mind. He exhaled. That's not too bad. Hey Luo, do you dare stick your dog head out to try it on? Zhang Yingying's furious voice came from far away. Her snow-white long legs swung as she stomped over. Her imposing air pressured the surrounding special police forces to disperse one after another, making a pathway for her. Luo Nan went, hic, and figured out that his mouth had shot off a bit too quickly. Though his impression of Zhang Yingying was very complicated, she had good intentions for him tonight. She had sent him a private message telling him how to fix the situation with Red Fox being angry. She also offered to bring pen, paper, and a flexible screen. Her mannerisms were great, but this description really did not fit her. Father, you're fine, right? Zhu Lei followed closely behind Zhang Yingying. He saw his father and was super excited. He rushed forward, but was smacked in the head by the metal fist of the exoskeleton armor suit. His tall and brawny figure became shorter by a half. When he saw how his friend had come to an end, Luo Nan became truly worried about the fate of his own head. He was also worried about incurring Zhang Yingying's wrath with her white rainbow. She might recreate a parhelion with him as a victim. He hastily raised his wristband to indicate his apologies. I'm very sorry. Oh, Yingying, your white rainbow. It feels much sharper. Zhang Yingying sneered. Now you're kissing, but it's too late. Luo Nan shrugged with hands unfolded. He felt helpless. It was extremely pitiable. He really was telling the truth. He had just cast a glance over to Zhang Yingying and saw the river cloud belt circulating around her body. He had never seen it so bright, lustrous, and pure before. It was as if there was living water snaking and circulating upon her body. It reflected with a cold aura. Because of this change, he had nearly blurted out and revealed the fact that he could directly observe Zhang Yingying's white rainbow. He was able to guess that Zhang Yingying must have made a breakthrough in her ability over this past week. Only then would such a distinct change be present. Such progress answered one of his questions. People were anxious in the society. Luckily at this time, Zhu Lei could not stand the lecturing his father was giving him. He came over dejected and depressed as he sought refuge, his actions serving as indirect protection for Luo Nan. He gave Luo Nan a hearty embrace. "Nan Sto, thank you so much. I heard everything from father. Good thing that you were there. Actually, uncle also looked after me all this time." The two got along well together, and they were friends of the same age who stuck together through thick and thin. Luo Nan naturally treated him differently. He patted Zhu Lei's muscular shoulder and spoke with some emotion. "Uncle was right. Lista, you really shouldn't have come inside. How were things over with senior sister Xiaolin? You're not someone of this world." Zhu Lei stepped 2 paces back after his hug. He revealed a dejected face. Those were her exact words. Sigh. Zhu Lei still had more to say, but he turned his head and saw that there were all sorts of people in their surroundings. He could only reveal a wry smile in the end. It did not matter how much he could try distinguishing himself from Xiaolin's words. The facts before him were ironclad proof, and he felt powerless in front of them. Bamboo Pole then coughed a few times in the encrypted channel to get everyone's attention. "Everyone, that's just about enough small talk for now. I still haven't finished explaining the situation over here yet." Next to Bamboo Pole was Red Fox. Red Fox recovered his spirits at this time. "Hey, the heck are you talking about all this for? You still want to recklessly engage with the Order of Justice's secular side. You want to risk life and limb with Fairchild. Can't you see that there's the giant evacuation route that you can take? You're still not sick of that hellhole yet." Chapter 113, Dumb Teammate, Part 1-2. Translator, Strivon. Red Fox smashed down with rapid-fire questions, but Bamboo Pole lectured beside him, explaining in calm and even-tempered manner. "Well, we're not helping Fairchild exactly. You see, there are still innocent civilians within Frost River reality. My initial estimation places the numbers at 100, with all of them being in Area A. They are divided into 20 clusters, with each of them containing 2 to 7 people." As Luo Nan listened attentively, Zhang Yingying came over to him, unwilling to forgive him. Bai Xinyan tried to hold her back by the shoulders, but it was no use. "Hey, you said you could feel a sharp change. Were you telling the truth?" "It's true," replied Luo Nan without hesitation. "Baseless talk. Who would believe you? Yeah, so draw me another portrait." In the time before Luo Nan could react, Zhang Yingying had stuffed a thin notebook into his hands. As she did this, she prodded a pencil into one of his hands as well. She was actually quite considerate. The pencil was already sharpened, and it nearly pierced his skin. It was really quite difficult to find paper notebooks and similar consumer articles in places like this amusement center. The things Zhang Yingying had stuffed into his hands must be game-related merchandise. There should be showy game-related icons and decorations on the borders, covers, and inner layers. Luo Nan was speechless for a time. He was able to get a fan from his sketched drawings. Moreover, his fan was actually this unfathomable and odd woman, Zhang Yingying. Bai Xinyan was quite baffled. "Are you saying that you really like his drawings?" Zhang Yingying was beaming with smiles. Not a trace of anger could be seen. He's a psychic. He can trace back the past. He can know the future. He can see what others can't see. My boss explained to me that my sense toward White Rainbow is far too subjective. I need more references from different perspectives. His drawings are simple and open. I can save a lot of effort with them. Luo Nan could only smile wryly in regards to her reasoning. He opened the notebook but looked at the ceiling above. The sprinklers were going off, soaking Luo Nan's hair. The water scattered onto the notebook, and soon a page was soaked as well. Zhang Yingying rolled her eyes in response. She pressed him. "Do it when things are over. You will give it to me tomorrow. Will there be one for me?" Bai Xinyan came to join in on the action. Luo Nan always maintained a bit of vigilance toward this woman. He could only tilt his head and laugh, adopting an introverted and shy appearance. However, his attention was soon drawn in by Bamboo Pole's explanation. The presence of the 100 civilians is really a big headache. The Knights of Equity currently do not plan to capture and hold people hostage. However, they're not making any signs of letting people go freely outside. Bamboo Pole then played a video. It showed that there were gunmen guarding the exit passageways. When a civilian tried to escape, the gunmen would shoot their legs and let them scream and moan on the ground. It was utterly cruel. Zhu Lei growled next to Luo Nan. He really did not like the scene. He could not hold back from muttering, "This is not a hostage situation. They're just establishing snake hives with them." Bamboo Pole adjusted to a different monitoring screen to let everyone see the specifics of the current situation. Those who tried to escape were shot in the legs to generate pain and fear. Together, those emotions formed the best medium for the words of Crite. The suffering of the civilians was increased by several folds, but they were not allowed to faint. They could only struggle and scream, allowing the incorporeal viper to come in and out of their bodies. Soon they were on their last breaths. The screams and struggles had another effect. They broadcasted out enormous quantities of negative psychic waves. The trapped civilians, who were not that harmed, were dominated by emotions of terror and panic. The radiation of negative emotions and psychic waves allowed the snake hives to spread and propagate. The more concentrated and the larger the number of snake hives, the easier it is for the Order of Justice's First Oblatum to display their abilities. Their limiting distance becomes smaller as well. According to previous information, it is standard to have 3 snake hives for a human weapon like Bai's to output at full power. If more Oblatum Knights are to be added, the number of snake hives needs to be doubled at least. Now that I mention it, you guys made the correct choice in bringing that rich kid out of there. Boss Nan's format pyramid is also very awesome. Bamboo Pole was talking about Huang Bingzhen, who had fainted once again. Right now, his body was buffed by Luo Nan's format pyramid, so the effects of the snake hive were suppressed. Though Luo Nan was praised, he was not that happy. The cruel mental torment in the monitoring feed was still displayed. Zhu Lei could not stand looking at it, and Luo Nan could not stand it either. Such a scene continued to spark the terrible feeling he had before. It made him feel unwell from inside out. At this moment, Red Fox gave another roasting. "The program has been changed once again. Now we're doing a gargantuan rescue mission. I say, is infantilism contagious? Just having one brat over here is enough." Luo Nan felt really horrible. He was attacked for no reason. He was vexed, and just as he was about to take a breath of air to calm down, he felt a slight pain in his fingers. It turned out that he had subconsciously squeezed his hand, breaking the sharp tip of the pencil and lodging the tip into his finger. Zhang Yingying spoke out in the encrypted channel. Hey, foxdog, that's enough of your mumbo-jumbo. The order of justice couldn't have scared you this bad. Red Fox's views had never changed all this time. He never thought that Zhang Yingying and even Bamboo Pole would say that he was a turncoat. Red Fox was in a bad mood from top to bottom. His fury hailed down as a torrent of words. Pardon me, I'm really not scared of the order of justice. I'm just scared by this dumph K teammate. The order of justice is going around unbridled, and they are one of the 3 major secret orders. To accomplish what you want, to continue on, anyone would be helpless, and that includes me. But this brat is different. He doesn't even know the common sense of picking your battles. He wants to make things big. Human-faced arachnid, Fairchild, words of Crite, he set them all off. You guys aren't scared of losing your face when playing with explosives with him. And you say I'm scared to the point of imploding my pants. Look at these innocent civilians, aren't they imploding? Zhang Yingying suddenly exploded with fury. Fox dog, don't you go too far. Red Fox's words were far too reproaching and hurtful. There was a moment when Luo Nan forgot to breathe. He just subconsciously removed the pencil nib from his finger, letting the nib fall into the shallow waters beneath. A profound and exquisite perception inexplicably locked onto the entire process of this tiny object falling down. The process included the nib tumbling and turning, the moment it entered the water, and even the resulting fine ripples. Luo Nan used this method to distract himself, to experience a moment of serenity. But when his attention came back, the burning, scalding heat in his chest became all the more unbearable. He wanted to go along with this burning emotion and roar in defiance. He wanted to rebuke Red Fox's irrational behavior. However, he did not utter a single word in the end. His expression was calm and relaxed. He took the range of his mental senses, which he had restricted down to a 10-meter radius in caution, and released it outward layer by layer. 10 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters. Soon, the range of his mental senses exceeded that of cat eyes, and it continued to expand. As the range of his mental senses rapidly expanded, the rate of information pouring in grew exponentially. The information was fed back to him, but it was not like that of a simple soul configuration. He could realize and facilitate a conversation with this energy and information. The energy and information had to follow the functional mechanisms of the human body's nervous system. Through special neurotransmitters and various forms of stimulants, the energy and information could be transmitted with order. They advanced under the process, step by step, to ultimately merge into the central hub of his brain. They assembled and combined into a complete, all-encompassing scene. This entire process tested the body's ability to receive information and energy to an ultimate degree. In a few breaths' time, various details and information of the scene in Frost River Reality Area A rushed in like the swelled wave of the ocean. Luo Nan was bombarded head-on, and a rumble could actually be heard. Chapter 113, Dumb Teammate, Part 2-2. Translator, Strivon. In this very moment, it was as if Luo Nan had been smacked head-on by an enormous wave. The space between his ears rumbled, and stars dazzled his eyes. Even his skin was a bit numb. However, his current level of endurance was different from before. His mental plane was stable from the beginning to the end, and it ebbed along with the impact of the flow of information. The stimulations of light, color, sound, cold, heat, and pain were split and filtered, causing the scene of the external world to gradually grow clear and bright. In the next few seconds, Luo Nan took a deep breath with his abundance of energy. He divided a strand of his mind to compare the flow of information with the elevation structural diagram that bamboo pole provided. He performed a second filtering and categorization with his own sensing area. Doing this amongst the assaulting flow of chaotic information was not easy. Within his spellbound state, Luo Nan could hear Zhu Lei curse, "The F***K is this guy?" He also heard Red Fox's sneer within the encrypted channel. "I'm overdoing it. Secretary, do you dare to vow and declare that the true intentions of this laughable big rescue mission isn't to wipe the butt of your boss?" Luo Nan's eyes remained closed. Whether or not He Yueyin had a response, Luo Nan would not pay further attention to the encrypted channel. He just concentrated on his fixed train of thought to filter the information he sensed. Practically by the time Red Fox had finished speaking, several spurred emotions and their corresponding information continued to refresh on Luo Nan's mental plane. He used the private message function of the encrypted channel to send some information to Bamboo Pole, who was in charge of intelligence work. Bamboo Pole did not respond immediately. It took a full 5 seconds for him to respond with a stupefied emoticon. Luo Nan let out a drawn-out breath upon doing all this. He suddenly felt some pain on his back. It was Zhang Yingying. She had smacked him and shouted, "Pump yourself up." Then she faced Red Fox and scolded him right back. "By your logic, you're grumbling around because you're doing cleanup work for the order of justice. That the people they dispatched, their takeover of the site, and the shots they fired are all because Luo Nan forced them to." These words sound very familiar to me. Back in the day, you ran out of He City like a dying dog. It looks like you're using the same excuse right now. Back then, you didn't even dare fart a word. This time, you have a chance. Are you taking the time to crap out this stinky performance to toss to others? Over at the reinforcement point, Red Fox exploded with anger upon being uncovered by Zhang Yingying. He made a most basic mistake by opening his mouth and directly howling into the channel. "Isn't your back hurting from standing so much and being a hypocrite? Do you want to make a bet? What kind of face do you think headquarters will make after this is over? Wait, you don't need to wait long. Just check the news tomorrow. Let's see what kind of attitude Xia City's government and military will have. Well, I bet you'll pucker up your butt and run just like before." Zhang Yingying spat in contempt. "If you have the guts, just go howl at headquarters, go howl at Xia City's government. A blade drawn in anger will be strong if drawn by the brave. A blade drawn in anger will be weak if drawn by a coward. Didn't you learn this in elementary school? I can teach you for free, you know." Ying. It was probably because she could feel that the team's atmosphere was on the verge of collapse that He Yueyin opened her mouth at last to stop Zhang Yingying from speaking further. However, by now Zhang Yingying was exploding with anger. She was unable to control herself as she stabbed back. "I'm sorry, I don't really know you. Don't talk to me so intimately. I don't want to repeat myself a third time. Oh right, someone wanted you to make a vow, Secretary He. Don't shrink away just because you lack the means. Weren't you so critical and strict last week? What happened to your incomparably imposing aura of never being wrong?" These two did not need to use the encrypted channel to engage in their dialogue. They were engaging in a battle of words right in each other's faces. This was much more direct than using the encrypted channel. The others cast a sidelong glances at them. Under the collective gazes of the crowd, He Yueyin's expression possessed neither happiness nor anger. She answered in an undisturbed tone, "I need to correct one of your misunderstandings. Mr. Luo isn't weak. What he can do, the things he can do, are much more than what you all are disputing about. Right now, an adjustment is being made due to new information and intelligence. I ask everyone to receive it attentively." Hello. Hello. It need not matter whether it was Zhang Yingying or Red Fox who responded in colorful, emotional tones to He Yueyin forcefully changing the topic. They had one thing in common. They were resentful. Just by saying, "Mr. Luo," He Yueyin took the focus and shifted it onto Luo Nan. Bamboo Pole had to cough a few times to try to capture all their attention. However, this yielded no results. Feeling helpless, he could only release a map. "All right, I think it's better for you guys to look at these on your own. I'll just mention one thing. The data just now was for reference only. From now on, all intelligence regarding the inside of Frost River reality will be refreshed constantly. Always refer to the newest map." As he spoke, two dynamic maps emerged in the encrypted channel. They were largely the same, but they had some minor differences. One was labeled Old, and the other was labeled New. These two images were both concise and clear. Red dots represented the enemy. Green dots represented the trapped civilians that were scattered around. The two images looked mostly similar, but careful inspection would reveal differences between the old and new maps in the number of red and green dots. There were at least 10% more dots on the new one, a scale of about a dozen people. The additional 10% was largely made up of red dots, the enemy. "You changed the monitoring style," Cat Eye's unique, sharp, and bright voice sounded out. "The new people who have shown up, they're all Oblatum Knights." Over at the reinforcement point, Bamboo Pole saw that a sneer still remained on Red Fox. He sighed. "Don't ask me, this has nothing to do with me." His words were unclear, but this vague response was the clearest indication of his thoughts. After all, He Yueyin had long since mentioned the matter about Luo Nan and his all-encompassing perception. And she also just mentioned it indirectly when she corrected Zhang Yingying for her misunderstanding. "You're a funny guy." Red Fox still wanted to maintain that cold and reproaching attitude, but Bamboo Pole just shrugged with unfolded hands. Not a sound came from Cat Eyes. It seemed like she had fallen into deep thought. The sneer on Red Fox's face gradually stiffened. Then it was as if he woke up a bit. His skin started to twitch and convulse. Before he could speak, Zhang Yingying went aha. Her mouth split into a grin, and she gave another good smack to Luo Nan's back. "Excellent. This hard worker has a decisive victory over a certain someone shooting his mouth. Talking sh*t with thousands of words can never compare to actually doing something calmly. However, Kitty will really lose her job at this rate." By speaking these words, Zhang Yingying felt a slip of the tongue herself. She rushed to shut herself up, but Cat Eyes had woken up from her deep thoughts. She was next to Luo Nan. Her eyes slightly tilted over, revealing squinting eyes. The intent coming out from them was like a blade just tempered by fire, and it sought to slash Luo Nan's face. She might have considered this fellow to be a hidden boss early on. However, Luo Nan revealed his ability in the field she was best at. This caused her heart to be directly provoked with great intensity. Complete dominance, this is not funny at all. Cat Eyes glared at Luo Nan like she wanted to kill him. She tried to see through his true nature, but she was unable to obtain anything substantial, just like in her previous failed experience. She could only resort to words. I won't talk about the other places, but here. Are you sure there are people? How did you do this? Cat Eyes was pointing at some location in the surroundings of Area A's arena block. The red dots were displayed quite clearly on the new map, but there were no traces of them on the old map. Cat Eyes should be able to sense this region, for it was at the edge of the range of her long-range perception. However, in truth, she was not able to perceive the existences of the enemies here. There were not many chances for Red Fox to vent. Red Fox practically chased Cat Eye's tail as he hoarsely spoke. Kitty is absolutely correct. Are you sure there are people? Can you guarantee that you are accurate, that you aren't improvising? You shut the hell up. Did you shoot away your brain, daring to shoot your mouth off like that? Cat Eyes and Zhang Yingying spoke at practically the same time. The length of their speech and their moods were different, but they left Red Fox choked on the spot. At this very moment, from Red Fox's perspective, it did not matter whether it was at Frost River Reality, at the reinforcement point, or in the virtual encrypted channel. They had all sunk into a silence that made it hard for him to take. It was till the point of suffocating. Chapter 114, Imploded, Part 1-2. Translator, Strivon. Cat Eyes was silent after venting with her yell. She stood there at a loss. Fortunately, Zhang Yingying had taken over the show. She laughed and patted Luo Nan's back, and she used her height advantage to stroke his head. She gave Luo Nan a good praising, but was slapped away by him displeasedly. Zhang Yingying did not get mad. On the contrary, she was now very excited. She was the one who made the recommendation for Luo Nan to enter the society. Whatever Luo Nan accomplished added color and luster to her reputation. At least this was what she believed. She did not doubt the authenticity of the information Luo Nan had supplied. It had nothing to do with his abilities. She trusted in the honest personality of this greenhorn and still maturing high school student, nothing more. Hey, now it's time to give the final word. Speak. Why can't Kitty see them and why can you? Luo Nan thought for a moment, but he opened his mouth in the end. That one, there is a corpse. Huh? Zhang Yingying was a bit shocked. It was not only her. There were not many people around them who were immediately able to understand Luo Nan's words. Zhang Yingying did her best to understand. She tried to come up with an explanation. So you are saying that the Oblatum Knight over there is disguised as a corpse, causing Bamboo Pole and Cat Eyes to miss it? Luo Nan nodded. This is too. Zhang Yingying was simply speechless. Luo Nan was able to see a corpse 50 meters away in such a complicated environment. This was quite amazing, but this was a pretty bad reason. Wasn't this like thinking that something was valuable and amazing, but then the truth revealed it to be worthless? She did not mean to reject Luo Nan's explanation, but she could not refrain from asking Cat Eyes to seek proof. So what is it? Hey, Kitty. Kitty only reacted when she heard her name. She answered with great effort. There really is a corpse over there. She was quite dispirited. She did not have any doubts in her mind. Bamboo Pole released an image from the monitoring system into the encrypted channel. Indeed, there was a corpse over there. It had a rather plump figure. It looked like a typical overweight person, commonly seen in the city. It looked as if the corpse had been done in by a bullet. It was prone on the ground and did not move at all. A giant puddle of blood seeped beneath it. Just looking at the amount of blood, it was very likely that this person was dead. Everyone who saw the video was dumbfounded. No matter how one looked at it, whether vertically or horizontally, it was without a doubt a corpse. There were no traces that this was an oblatum knight in disguise. Those within the encrypted channel, Red Fox's hoarse voice trembled with laughter. Are you saying this fatty is an oblatum knight? That's such a joke. Those who have seen the data on the order of justice, raise your hands. Which one of the 9 oblatum knights of Xia City has this corpse's face? For a time, no one responded. Red Fox suddenly raised the volume of his voice. Perhaps Boss Nan believes that we must be vigilant towards any human-shaped object. Then, according to your logic, every single corpse in Frost River reality has the potential of being an oblatum knight. Who's going to do the verification? Are we just going to rely on those dots you placed on the map? How laughable! Red Fox's throat was torn by the time he finished. He truly believed that he was not mistaken, that he did nothing wrong. Right now, he was a bit more resolute than before. The reason why the situation was so awkward was ultimately because it revolved around Luo Nan, this infantile trash, and his surrounding female white knights. These women were protecting him in a completely biased manner. He had already wanted to turn around and leave more than once. He wanted to break away from this cursed operation, but he didn't deserve to be called a coward over this. He still had pent-up frustrations from over many years of leaving He City and coming to Xia City. His manner of speaking was influenced by his frustrations. People had attacked back when he spoke, and he was beat down quite badly. The further frustrations made him want to argue things clearly. Bamboo Pole looked at his expression. He felt unwell for Red Fox and wanted to mediate. He reached out and placed his hand on Red Fox's shoulder. Red Fox, listen to me. This includes you. Red Fox slapped Bamboo Pole's hand away with force. He glared at Bamboo Pole with bloodshot eyes. Do you have *T for brains? To believe word for word what a little baby says? Do you not care if it is right or wrong? Do you just clap like a monkey towards a newly processed dynamic map? Bamboo Pole sighed. He shrugged. Red Fox, you need to cool down and think. I'll cool you, you rent boy. Red Fox gave Bamboo Pole a big thumbs down. He took a big breath and straightened his red jacket with both his hands. This red jacket represented his name and reputation. His lips split as he burst out laughing. How about this? You guys don't have to do anything. I'll just go by myself. Let's make a bet and see if that really is an oblatum knight. Bamboo Pole was shocked as he suddenly realized the meaning behind Red Fox's words. He reached out his hand to grab Red Fox, but Bamboo Pole was not a combat member. How could he prevail over Red Fox, who had the reputation of city hunter? He grabbed nothing but air with those hands. Stop him, Bamboo Pole called out to Papercut, but Papercut was a mentally enhanced ability user. He was not that much better than Bamboo Pole. Red Fox's body flickered, and he appeared in the shopping center, another reinforcement point. Soon he blended into the bustling streets with large flows of people. By the time Bamboo Pole and Papercut rushed over, their line of sight was already blurred by the screen of rain. It was impossible to see a trace of Red Fox. Didn't you guys say that all I can do is shoot my mouth? I'll show you what I can do. Red Fox's lips were fixed into a sneer. He walked with large strides toward the most chaotic area of the city, downtown. Red Fox, don't do something meaningless. Irrational people like to roll around and cause a crazy scene, right? 2 messages came into the encrypted channel. The first came from He Yueyin. The later naturally came from Zhang Yingying. The two had spoken at nearly the same time, upon which He Yueyin gave a piercing glare that was unprecedentedly strict. Though Zhang Yingying always had a lively personality, she was instantly stifled by that glare. Zhang Yingying wanted to counterattack, but Bai Xinyan spoke in her ear. "Hey, you can't push people too far." Zhang Yingying's mouth gaped, but no sound came out. Now that Bai Xinyan had mentioned it, Zhang Yingying realized that Red Fox's behavior was a bit abnormal. At the very least, Red Fox had a bit of a nothing-to-lose air about him. Were things this serious? At this time, Red Fox's hoarse voice entered the encrypted channel. "Then explain things more clearly, Mrs. Secretary. Explain it to me clearly. Where is the meaning? Where is the meaning behind this damned night?" Red Fox continued to make the basic mistake of communication by sound waves instead of psychic waves. But he did not care about the strange gazes cast towards him by the pedestrians around. After a good round of cursing, he mocked with his hoarse voice. "Since there's no meaning to this at all, then what I'm doing isn't bad." He quickened his pace as he let his words hang in the air. The distance between the reinforcement point and Frost River Reality was closer than Frost River Reality and Yulin Hotel. In the instant he had spoken, he had given strength to his legs and saw the triangular spaceship in the distance. This was Frost River Reality. It was surrounded by spotlights and police lights. Waves and waves of people were evacuating from Frost River Reality ahead. Their paces varied between urgent and slow. Their expressions switched back and forth between palpitating with fear, panic, excitement, and curiosity. Red Fox did not dodge or move out of the way. He collided head-on into the flow of people. With both hands in his pocket, he used a most relaxed way to go against the stream. His arms and shoulders bumped into people over and over, but it did not cause him the slightest impact. A very familiar feeling. These ignorant faces are no different than those of He City. Chapter 114, Imploded, Part 2-2. Translator, Strivon. The sneer fixed on Red Fox's lips seemed to be carved by a knife. This was the arc his lips were the most used to. Absurd feelings of déjà vu assaulted him over and over, causing him to be restless as he recalled some memories. It seemed like ages ago. The city was similar. The night was similar. The flow of people was similar. He was similar. However, back then there was not a triangular spaceship. There were only targets fleeing in panic, targets doing their best to hide. Oh, he remembered now. It was quite the perfect operation. He had a group of friends and peers who were outstanding just like him. They used 10 days and 10 nights to execute the perfect operation down to every link. All that was left was for him, the city hunter, to execute the final blow. Not a single innocent civilian was harmed in the busiest area of the city, and the target was killed easily. The target was a preacher in name. He killed women and children as sacrifices for his demonic god. He was a mad believer. Filthy blood had splashed onto Red Fox's jacket, just like an accidental spillage of champagne. In that moment, every single one of the participants was jubilant at their success. Most of them were youngsters who had just entered the society, just taken the entrance evaluation. The number of awakened among them were few, but through strict planning and excellent execution, they were able to slowly grind away at their target's advantages. They created a favorable situation for themselves, and they finally accomplished a perfect kill on the mad believer with the strength of B rank. Then what happened? The order caused wanton destruction in He City in the name of revenge. A list of the participants' names for the operation was leaked, and they were pursued and slaughtered one by one down the list. In a short few days, over half of the youngsters who had participated in the operation had died. In the meantime, what did the society do? Headquarters rebuked them with an evaluation that said, an operation where the consequences were never considered at all. The branch gave them getaway tickets, which was pretty much the same as being exiled. They were banished far, far away by those who they thought were their comrades. As the lucky few who survived, they ran out from He City like dogs. They hid in the wilderness and scattered in every direction like the rays of a star. If they were to try to contact each other now, 9 out of 10 of them would not respond. Their locations were unknown. Whether they were dead or alive was also unknown. What the hell kind of ending was this? The stream of people split just ahead of Red Fox. Countless blurry faces streamed past his shoulders on each side, giving him a sense of déjà vu. His mind entered a wonderful state of tranquility, to the point that he was able to crack some jokes. 856 meters away from the target, ETA 90 seconds. Raise your bets, everyone. Whoever bets against me, I'll bet even higher. The encrypted channel was just a sheet of silence. It was just like the night he fled from He City. The corner of Red Fox's mouth twitched as he recalled these memories. In the end, his mouth settled into his standard sneering smile. Red Fox arrived at the outer perimeter of Frost River reality. There were crowds here, standing and watching. They billowed out from the police cordon when it was set, falling back unwillingly. Some media reporting crew could not get good spots. They tried to squeeze against the flow to get closer to the scene of the incident. Cameras flashed atop the 3 buildings surrounding Frost River reality, the flashes looking like the flickering of stars. Occasionally, they would flicker simultaneously, casting a deathly white light in this area. It made quite the perfect graveyard. As Red Fox was about to cut into a thicker stream of people, some new information came slipping into the encrypted channel. The sender was He Yueyin. We shouldn't be placing our attention on that corpse. Red Fox was distracted for a moment, having heard her words. His brain spun its gears a few revolutions before he ultimately laughed. I knew it all along. I knew it all along. Going to check an oblatum night. Going to check a corpse. This is simply the crappiest joke of all. Hey, at Frost River reality, Zhang Yingying glared at He Yueyin with both her eyes and raised her hand and pointed straight at He Yueyin. She wanted to berate He Yueyin, but she subconsciously shifted her gaze onto Luo Nan. Luo Nan's expression was still relaxed as he stood solemn and silent. He lacked the ease of one who held the pearl of wisdom, but he also lacked the panic of a swindler whose ruse was seen through. Red Fox chuckled. Mrs. Secretary, so you're saying that you're folding your hand and admitting defeat. Have you sought your boss's opinion before saying these words? Mr. Luo, Boss Luo, aren't you going to say anything? It was as if Luo Nan did not hear a word. He had no reaction whatsoever. Zhang Yingying could not hold herself back, but Bai Xinyan reined her in by the neck. It was an intimate action, but because of it, Zhang Yingying could not speak another word. Red Fox's smile grew when he did not hear a response. His voice grew hoarser. Okay, that's great. Your ability to wipe butt and faces is truly amazing. Is there any point in doing any of this? Is it to smack my face? Or is it to let this weasel wriggle out of this? He Yueyin spoke calmly. Isn't this what you wanted? Red Fox was simply dumbfounded. Are you joking? He Yueyin sighed a bit secretly. This has nothing to do with jokes. I'm just trying to bring your attention back to the plane of reality. For instance, you have a misunderstanding, an error in logic. Unreasonable. At this time, Red Fox truly had an impulse to smash the Hexia into pieces. However, a familiar voice then sounded in his ear. If we really do discuss this matter with the order of justice, what value do we have? Are we the first wave of cannon fodder, or are we being set up to be the fall guys? What's this? You guys haven't seen the true nature of headquarters. The situation is already catastrophically enormous. These secret orders are experts in these topics of faith. They make a big fuss over minor issues. Moreover, headquarters will always do what is politically correct. Red Fox understood at last that this was his own voice he was hearing, words he had once spoken. They were just abbreviated through editing. The original meaning behind them was not changed. He could only sneer in response. What's wrong? You want to write me up to HQ? Go ahead. They did a number on me back in the day. I have experienced it once. A few more times is nothing to me. He Yueyin continued to play the audio, which had been prepared recently. The next paragraph had a closer timestamp. It was the start of Red Fox tearing into everyone else. A human-faced arachnid, Fairchild, words of Crite, he set them all off. You guys aren't scared of losing your face when playing with explosives with him, and you say I'm scared to the point of imploding my pants. Look at these innocent civilians, aren't they imploding? This dialogue suddenly entered Red Fox's ear right, when he began to mull over his counter-argument. Blood suddenly burst, and his face swelled. The sound waves vibrated against his eardrum, and his own mocking and caustic tone was like a flat file. It pressed deep into his mind and started grinding back and forth. He was in pain and irritated. He wanted to open his mouth to speak, but all that echoed through his head was inexplicably that imploding, imploding. It pressed down on him with realness, and he was not even able to spit out half a word. Only now did He Yueyin's voice enter his ear. My code name is Secretary. Luo Nan isn't my boss. Of everyone currently here, there is no one who has known him for more than 2 weeks. Luo Nan is a rookie who just recently entered the society. Whether it be in the normal, secular world or the inside world, he is very much lacking in life experience. The potential for his mistakes to bring trouble far exceeds that of everyone else, especially his ability to make situations big. However, whether it be me, Yingying's bamboo pole, we several people are all leading him, protecting him, helping him. Is this bad? He won't be cannon fodder. He won't be the fall guy. He won't be the victim of politics. This kind of result is attainable in our loose society. Are you displeased? Are you disappointed? Especially you, who came out of He City. Don't you dare play the emotional card with me. The words He City were like a scorching brand that pressed forcefully against Red Fox's chest. Because of it, he could not refrain from screaming, your **T society is at best just a death list. You all are listed one by one. And one by one, you all will be crossed off. Crossed off. You. Oh my, this list you speak of, am I on it? The voice suddenly rang out behind his head. He was so startled that his scalp started to go numb. Even though Red Fox was at the height of his emotions, instinct still aided him in evading with a roll. He pulled some distance, and only then did he turn to look back. In this very moment, he was stupefied on the spot. It was a lean, middle-aged man. He wore a well-ironed tuxedo, one that would normally only be worn for formal dinner parties. His eyes were half covered by classical glasses, and he had a smile that caused the skin around his eyes to ripple with shallow creases and lines. Chapter 115, Ouyang Chen, Part 1-2. Translator, Strivon. Good evening, Red Fox. Good evening. Red Fox's mouth responded instinctively. Actually, he had been dumbstruck for a full 5 seconds before he came to with great difficulty. He bowed and said, "President, sir, you've arrived." This middle-aged man behind him was none other than the president of the Wilderness Explorers Society's Xia City branch. He was the nominal leader of all the ability users in the city, Ouyang Chen. Practically everyone of the Xia City branch knew where to find this president with the nickname, the Gentleman of the Lab. Just go to the branch's office, the Shanding Tri-Towers, and knock on the laboratory located on the 13th floor. He will be there 9 times out of 10. After the Hexia was introduced to the world, and the psychic wave network was gradually completed, Ouyang Chen held several job responsibilities simultaneously. He was the lead engineer, the chief operating officer, the project manager, and several other positions. He spent entire days calibrating the network, resolving bugs, and increasing the quality of service through in-depth research. There were many who suspected that Ouyang Chen never even took a single step outside the office for the 365 days in a year and the 24 hours in a day. He wore the same tuxedo for many years without change. He had only shown himself in front of a crowd a few times for rare formal meetings and nothing more. Because Red Fox knew all this about the president, Red Fox's brain was filled with confusion when he saw Ouyang Chen appear outside Frost River reality. Additionally, the president's initial words. What was the meaning behind them? Ouyang Chen wore a faint smile like this was a chance encounter while crossing an intersection. He waved at Red Fox. "I interrupted you all in the middle of your chat. That was rude of me." Having heard his words, Red Fox immediately looked at the encrypted channel. However, there were not any eye-catching indicators of there being any super admins in the channel. Ouyang Chen was not currently in the encrypted channel, but switching his trains of thought, the entire psychic wave network was single-handedly constructed by Ouyang Chen. He had supervisor privileges toward all official operations, coordinated by the society. It was quite normal for him to have seen their contention. Those words just then, had he seen them all? Red Fox was a bit dazed, but he could feel his burning fury of emotions miraculously start to plummet ever since Ouyang Chen had arrived. All that remained in the pit of his heart was a faint warmth. He Yueyi's voice continued to be transmitted through the hexia. "I don't want to give you the impression that I'm being emotional. I just hope to relay the facts. The metropolises of the world are nominally under the jurisdiction of the United Government. In truth, the metropolises are in half-independent states. Every metropolis had a different ecology. This applies to the normal, secular world, and the inner world is no different. There isn't a true, unified order and logic. I really don't like these kinds of circumstances, but the resulting facts are as follows. No matter what headquarters' verdict is, no matter what outcome you had in He City, it is meaningless to apply them to Xia City." Red Fox did not have a stable mind right now. Most of her words had entered one ear and left the other. Red Fox's reaction towards Ouyang Chen's appearance was quite an intense one, even though Ouyang Chen had not entered the encrypted channel. However, it seemed like those over at Frost River Reality had not received any news of his arrival at all. There was not any puzzlement, shock, or greetings. It was completely dead on that front. It was as if they were completely unaware of Ouyang Chen's arrival. Or perhaps this President Ouyang Chen only existed in his world. Could it be, was this Ouyang Chen an illusion? Red Fox's consciousness grew even more fuddled. He could not refrain from looking once again at Ouyang Chen. The president appeared clearly and distinctly, and he even raised his hand in indication. Ouyang Chen wanted him to listen earnestly. Some highly sensitive vocabulary pierced his eardrum from He Yueyin right at this time. I'm not too clear on what a death list is, but I believe that the coremost self-logic of an awakened can't be distorted by external threats. President Ouyang, the man who had proposed the 3 levels of logic theory, was right next to him. Red Fox obviously knew the meaning of self-logic. It was when an ability user influences the external world, enabling one's own strength to have its effects truly displayed. Distorted, this was not a good word at all in this context. First, he had been smacked in the face by his own words. Then he had a fright from Ouyang Chen's appearance. The current Red Fox was not in the mood to get into a tangle. He just sneered and was ready to tell the others of Ouyang Chen's arrival when, "Aren't the people around here quite stupid?" Ouyang Chen asked suddenly. "Huh?" Red Fox heard his words and subconsciously twisted his head and looked all around. He observed the surrounding people coming and going restlessly, but he did not know how he should answer Ouyang Chen. Ouyang Chen reached out with his right hand, and his arms slightly swayed. It was like he was marking a rhythm as he drew a triangle high up in the sky. Then he suddenly changed the topic. The 3 first oblatums of the Order of Justice stand at the 3 corners of a triangle. Their evolution field envelopes the area, acting as the initial step in their magic spell. Among them is 1 secret-bound first oblatum and 2 clear-sworn first oblatums. Their strength in order from high to low is B+, C+, and C+. According to the evolution spell theory, their practical range of control has the triangle as their innermost nucleus. Their range of control has a maximum median radius of 3.2 times that of the nucleus to cover a vast area. Red Fox felt like an idiot. He was completely unable to follow Ouyang Chen's train of thought. Let us translate the range to something more concrete. These 3 buildings, including Frost River Reality and the adjacent 2 blocks, are all within the direct lock-on range of the magic spell. All the people here, standing and watching, and all those people in the adjacent blocks are in life-threatening danger. Isn't it quite stupid of them to still remain in the area? Ouyang Chen looked gravely around him. He no longer had a smile on his face, and a calm and cold gaze could be seen behind those glasses. Such an image was the usual appearance of the gentleman of the lab. Red Fox was more familiar with this image, but it made him more nervous. He hesitated before replying, "Is it because that they're ignorant about the danger?" "Pretty much, but that answer isn't sufficient." Ouyang Chen reached out with his hand and pointed outward. It was as if he had stirred the surface of a body of water. His hand streaked across the pushing and rushing flow of people, and fine ripples diffused through this medium. Red Fox's eyes bulged wide in an instant. In this very moment, he finally discovered the oddities of the flock of people in their surroundings. No, this was wrong. The issue laid in himself and Ouyang Chen. The 2 were clearly standing within a stream of people. Yet every one of these people ignored them. Even if these people's attentions were gathered on Frost River Reality, bumping into people was unavoidable in such a crowded stream. However, in their current situation, not a single person made contact with them. The people went around them, went between them, and even went through them. It was as if Red Fox and Ouyang Chen had turned into formless ghosts. Their bodies lay in the world of reality, existing along with the surrounding stream of people, yet an insurmountable distance was pulled between them. Then Red Fox saw something quite clearly in the encrypted channel, the clock in the corner of the interface. How the heck did it stop? This is reality projection, spatial manipulation, or whatever you want to call it, but I'm used to calling it logic world. Ouyang Chen reached out, pointed at his temples and added, "It is the world interpreted by my logic." Was this none other than the power of the extraordinaries? In face of this inconceivable power, Red Fox lost all thoughts of courage. He could only bow in defeat. "President, sir, enlighten me." Ouyang Chen did not believe that Red Fox was being rude, so he explained using terms like he was teaching a high-level course in the society. "It is because these people are ignorant to our logic, ignorant towards the logic of the inner world. The scope of thought for ordinary people are mostly limited to their sights, so they are unable to see the danger. Some people may consider thoughts of whether or not they are in range of guns, explosives, and so on, but this isn't enough. To truly avoid troubles, they need to go at least 2 blocks away. This is the scope of danger that they can't imagine." Ouyang Chen's explanation was undoubtedly true. As Red Fox nodded, Ouyang Chen inexplicably changed topics once again. "Though they may be stupid, you're not too clear on things yourself. In a certain sense, you are as stupid as them. No, you're even more stupid. Why is that?" That's a wrap for this installment. Thank you all for watching and supporting Lord of the Stories. If you enjoyed this tale, please hit the like button, share it, and subscribe for more amazing stories. You can also explore other series updated daily in our playlists. Have a fantastic day and see you in the next episode.